You're attacking me in Greenland, but we had a deal. That's the last time I trust you. Dear Tim and Moby, what caused World War II? From Fred. Well, it's a pretty complicated story, and it begins at the end of World War I. In 1918, Germany was defeated by the Allied powers, Great Britain, France, Italy, and the United States. According to the Treaty of Versailles, Germany had to take full responsibility for starting the war and pay $33 billion to the winners. These funds were called reparations. World War I took a heavy toll on the German economy, and the reparation payments were way more than it could handle. To pay the debt, Germany printed more money. But that caused inflation to spiral out of control and made German money worthless. The inflation crisis was eventually resolved, but Germany still faced lots of other problems. Since unemployment was high and the new democratic government didn't have broad support from the people, there was frequent civil unrest. And then the Great Depression began in 1929. Although it started in the U.S., it caused economic hardship around the world. In these tough times, the German people were looking for leaders to restore order and prosperity. So they turned to Adolf Hitler. He was the leader of the Nazi Party, a fascist political movement. Well, fascism is sort of hard to describe. Basically, it's a form of government where power is concentrated in a single dictator. It's centered around an extreme form of patriotism or love for one's country and celebrates military strength and brute force. Sure, patriotism is usually a good thing, and there's nothing wrong with having a strong military either. But fascism takes away citizens' individual freedoms. It also holds that strong countries have the right to invade and conquer weak ones. Anyway, when Hitler took power, he immediately started building up his army and manufacturing tanks and warplanes. This kick-started the economy and made him popular among the German people. It also violated the Treaty of Versailles, which forbade Germany from building a strong army. But the leaders of Britain and France let Hitler do it anyway. Well, World War I wasn't only tough on Germany. The British and French lost 2 million soldiers in the war and spent the equivalent of $60 billion on it. They wanted to avoid another war at all costs. And they assumed that Hitler felt the same way, and that he wouldn't start a war as long as they didn't provoke him. This policy of letting Hitler do what he wanted was called appeasement. Hitler soon allied himself with Benito Mussolini, the fascist dictator of Italy. And later, the two of them made a pact with Imperial Japan, whose government was controlled by military generals. Together, they formed what became known as the Axis powers. During the 1930s, all three of these countries took over other nations. Japan took over parts of China, Italy invaded Ethiopia, and Germany annexed Austria. Yep, the international community let them get away with it. So Hitler started pushing to acquire even more territory. In 1938, the leaders of Britain and France met with Hitler and agreed to let him take over part of Czechoslovakia. Neville Chamberlain, the British Prime Minister, claimed this act would bring peace for our time. Yeah, in retrospect, he was wrong. But at the time, the agreement had wide popular support. Most people felt that Austria and Czechoslovakia weren't worth fighting a big war over. And some believed that Germany was rightfully reclaiming land it lost during World War I. However, when Germany invaded Poland on September 1st, 1939, Great Britain and France finally declared war. That was the beginning of World War II in Europe. The United States shipped supplies and weapons to France and England, but it wouldn't declare war or send troops. Meanwhile, the U.S. tried to stop Japanese expansion with a trade embargo. That just means the United States ended all trade with Japan. Japan's reply came on December 7, 1941, when Japanese warplanes attacked American ships at Pearl Harbor, Hawaii. The U.S. declared war on Japan the very next day. A few days later, Germany and Italy declared war on the U.S., and that was the beginning of World War II for America. By the way, I'm attacking your armies in Madagascar. You really need to control your temper.